शुक्लांबरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। ॐ सिन्दूरारुणविग्रहां त्रिनयनां माणिक्यमौलिस्फुरत्तारानायकशेखरां स्मितमुखीमापीनवक्षोरुहां पाणिभ्यां मलिपूर्णरत्नचषकं रक्तोत्पलं बिभ्रतीं सौम्यां रत्नघटस्थरक्तचरणां ध्यायेत् परामम्बिकाम्। ॐ ध्यायेन्नित्यं महेशं रजतगिरिनिभं चारुचन्द्रावतंसं रत्नाकल्पोज्ज्वलाङ्गं परशुमृगवरभीतिहस्तं प्रसन्नं पद्मासीनं समन्तात् स्तुतममरगणैः व्याघ्रकृत्तिं वसानं विश्वाद्यं विश्वबीजं निखिलभयहरं पञ्चवक्त्रं त्रिनेत्रम्। ॐ नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुर्गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करम्। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्ससुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत्।
धृतराष्ट्र उवाच धर्मक्षेत्रे कुरुक्षेत्रे समवेतायुयुत्सवः मामका पाण्डवाश्चैव किमकुर्वत सञ्जय। श्रीभगवानुवाच क्लैप्यमास्मगमः पार्थ नैतत्त्वय्युपपद्यते क्षुद्रं हृदय दौर्बल्यं त्यक्त्वोत्तिष्ठ परन्तप। यो माम् अजम् अनादिं च वेत्ति लोकमहेश्वरम् असम्मूढः समर्थ्येषु सर्वपापैः प्रमुच्यते। एतां विभूतिं योगं च मम यो वेत्ति तत्त्वतः सोऽविकम्पेन योगेन युज्यते नात्र संशयः। तेषां सततयुक्तानां भजतां प्रीतिपूर्वकं ददामि बुद्धियोगं तं येन माम् उपयान्ति ते। तेषामेवानुकम्पार्थम् अहम् अज्ञानजं तमः नाशयाम्यात्मभावस्थो ज्ञानदीपेन भास्वता। हन्ता ते कथिष्यामि दिव्या ह्यात्मविभूतयः प्राधान्यतः कुरु श्रेष्ठ नास्त्यन्तो विस्तरस्य मे। अहमात्मा गुडाकेश सर्वभूताश्रयस्थितः अहमादिश्च मध्यं च भूतानामन्त एव च सर्गाणामादिरन्तश्च मध्यं चैवाहमर्जुन। अध्यात्मविद्याविद्यानां वादः प्रवदतामहम् यच्चापि सर्वभूतानां बीजं तदहमर्जुन। न तदस्ति विना यत् स्यात् मया भूतं चराचरम् नान्तोऽस्ति मम दिव्यानां विभूतीनां परन्तप एष तु देशतः प्रोक्तो विभूतिविस्तरो मया यत् यत् विभूतिमत्सत्त्वं श्रीमद् वा तत्तदेवावगच्छत्वं मम तेजोंश संभवम्.
Very nice. Thank you, Resi. Namaste, everyone. Acha, so Kshetrajna Yoga. So I think last time we talked about this. Yah Pashyati Sapashyati, and then Yada Bhuta Prathag Bhavam Ekastham Anupashyati Tata Eva Cha Vistaram Brahma Sampadhyati. We read that one?
No, Professor.
Have we read
not.
30?
We read up to 29.
Pardon me? 29.
Yeah.
Only till 29. Right. Yep, Pashyati Sapashyati. Very good. So this one we reckoned back to the earlier very similar verse of Prakritehi Kriyamanani, explaining action, doership, and the doer. And so, any questions on the last verses that we read? 27, 28, 29. Oh, very good. The more we actually talk to other people, you will realize how profound the wisdom expressed in these verses itself is. So having the foundation, for instance, another creed or religion may say something that on the surface seems fairly reasonable, such as God loves you and he loved you so much that he sent his only son to die for your sins. Right? It's a concept. All religion is a mental concept, right? And that mental concept can move many people to a certain devotion, a kind of shraddha. But then many people are also dissatisfied with it. Correct? Many people nowadays may question who is this creator God? If he loves us so much, why are so many bad things happening in the world? Why do bad things happen to good people? Right? So every teacher tries to teach in accordance with the intelligence and questioning nature of the students around him. Right? Correct? Now, there are many people who are born in a tradition where that creed is the major creed and they're not happy with it. They're not able to believe it. Correct? I'm not trying to say that Sanatana Dharma is immune to that. There are many ways that one can teach Hinduism also, which you may not inspire your belief. Right? Okay, let me tell you one concept from Hinduism. In the south of India, the form of the Lord, Muruga is very, Muruga, Kartikeya, very popular. Muruga carries it's called a veil in Tamil. Veil is a spear. You know the one Muruga carries. Shakti Hasta. Right? Now, when you're a child, when you're growing up, uh, they they will say that if you do something bad, God will come and pierce your eye, poke your eye out with that spear. Okay, I will give you this as a creed. This is your creed. This is your doctrine. Okay, you tell me, will you continue accepting this as you grow? Do you see this God as a benevolent God? Can it sustain if I make this your creed? It will not. Okay, and the same. So what I'm trying to point out is that within our Sanatana Dharma itself, there are versions you can encounter which are riddled with superstition and belief, which will not satisfy the intelligent and questioning mind. But, and this is the big but, the ocean of Sanatana Dharma is so vast that there is something in it that will satisfy every mind. Think of it like this. However intelligent you are, however intellectual you are, however logical you are, there is a piece of work in Sanatana Dharma which will satisfy you and through which you can find the Lord. However, in other creeds and religions, this is not the case. Because there are certain absolute truths and books which you cannot transcend in those creeds that are fundamentally maybe creationist. You see what I'm trying to say? The starting point is not from the origin. The starting point is not transcendent. Do you understand what I'm saying? So let us take the starting point here, the Advaitic starting point. One, uniform, without beginning, without end, right? From this comes the many. Okay. Now, when the one becomes the many, I can start at different levels in the many. Do you understand? As one proceeds from the one to the many, I can start at different levels of the many. And if I stop at one of the levels of multiplicity, I cannot transcend that to the one. That's my limit. That's a ceiling. That's a concrete ceiling. If my creed stops there, I cannot transcend that. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? If my creed is creationist, I cannot transcend the concept of creation. Right? So it depends where your starting point is. Okay. The power of these words is that if you have the intelligence and the great good fortune to be born in a tradition which allows you to pursue a path which has no limits. Think of that. What a blessing. Think if you were born in a tradition where you were always bumping your head against some concrete wall, against a concrete ceiling, and you were frustrated all your life. You could not accept what your parents taught you. You could not accept the entire gamut and limit of your identification with that faith put you inside a well, like a frog. Think of the blessing of being born in a tradition where there are no limits. Right? Even if you do not experience the truth of these last three verses, the very exposure in this human life to these verses is a blessing. I can tell you that. Because you can spend 90 years of your life in another creed, bashing your head against something that you do not understand, that you can't let go of, and that you have to reconcile. Right? But you were born into a tradition that said there are no limits. Yeah, that's amazing. That is liberating itself. Right? If I can bless you with a mind drawn towards a teaching that says there are no limits. Right? This is a blessing. Right? We don't, nowadays the big thing is gratitude, right? We are supposed to feel gratitude, right? Keep a gratitude journal. Okay. This is a very fundamental gratitude, but it takes a certain openness of mind to see it. Right? And I can tell you this by interacting with people who are um, born into more limited notions of religion and confining notions, that this is the great blessing. The great blessing is these following. Look at this verse. So that is the verse we're going to read, number 30. So I'm presaging your next verse, that to read this verse is a blessing. So let's please read it.
Yada bhuta prithak bhavam ekastham anupashyati tata eva cha vistaram brahma sampadyate tada.
Thank you. Yada, when, bhuta, being, prithak bhavam, the multiplicity of being itself. When the multiplicity of being itself. Last time we talked about characharam, jangamam, something like that, right? Multiplicity of being. Ekastham, abiding in one. Anupashyati, one sees. Tata evacha, and indeed that plurality, vistaram, variety, Brahma sampadyate, as proceeding from that Brahman, then he becomes Brahman. So now you think about this, okay? So in this thinking, right, if this were true, you've been exposed to this fantastic verse, that means no other human being is excluded from this multiplicity. Okay, so that means no one else. Christians are included in the multiplicity. Muslims are included in the multiplicity. Jews are included in the multiplicity. Black people are included in the multiplicity. Lame people are included in the multiplicity. Lepers are included in the multiplicity. There is nothing that is outside them. So think of this. This is a very powerful thing. We cannot turn around and say somebody is excluded from it. We cannot condemn anyone to eternal damnation. We cannot shut anybody out. Right? This is the high vision of the Rishis. It's the truth. It is what they saw. Right? It is what Bhagavan's very own words. Then what to say of all the divisions within our, then can we exclude Vishnu Bhaktas or Shaivas or Jains or Buddhists, or what to say of those who are so much closer in thought? Of course you cannot, right? This is the height of the thinking. This is the true meaning of it, right? No one is excluded. Nothing is excluded. Not even human being, forget human being. Plants, animals, stones, mountains, seas, oceans, nothing is excluded, right? So it is a very lofty thought, right? Ordinary human beings are not capable, will not normally think of this at all. That is what it means to be born in the tradition of Sanatana Dharma. That is what one should be proud of. That is what one should feel blessed for having been given this very word. Because for many people who are not born in the tradition, these words are foreign. The beginning of their very notion of religion is exclusionary. It is identity based. I am X, you are not X. So you cannot be me. You cannot have access to. You are not part of my God's creation. This is not the Sanatana Dharmi's viewpoint. Right? Does that mean that there are no laws or rules or no mores or no social concepts? No, they are all there. There is dharma at various levels. There is Vyavaharika Dharma, there is Vaidika Dharma. These exist. But deep down inside, all that thinking is informed with the greater good of mankind in mind. Now, does that mean that everyone is equal in the land of duality? No, of course not. It cannot be. It cannot be. A donkey cannot come and sit here and talk, right? We would not do that. So then what is this? That is the riddle. The riddle is how to internally understand, experience this truth, and yet move in the world of duality in a manner that is in perfect harmony with the wisdom of that one. Right? The one has a wisdom, right? The one's nature is all wisdom only. Satchidananda. If we think that we are intelligent, the very nature of intelligence is Brahman. Okay? So the closer one becomes to that, then one understands what that intelligence is, right? And how did that intelligence intend the world of duality to evolve? That's what the rishis knew, right? And that is why what they have said is worth trying to understand. Do you see what I'm trying to say? Right? Because ultimately we have to live in the land of duality, in the world of multiplicity. So, any questions on that? He who directly perceives, according to the instructions of the Shastras and teachers, the multiplicity of beings, Shastra Acharya Upadesham Anu Atmanam Pratyakshatvena Pashyati Atmaiva Idam Sarva. Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Atma eva idam sarva. Idam sarvam. Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, number 248. Of course, which Atma? Not the Kshetra. Correct? Not the Kshetra. The Kshetrajna. The true I within everyone. So, when he perceives that all this is self alone, and as proceeding from that very self, becomes at that very time Brahman. This is the idea. Ekasya atmanah sarvadehatmatve tad dosha sambandhe prapte idam uchyate. As the self's contact with the flaws of the bodies, which is, we said, guna sangat, right? Purusha, why is Purusha bound in Prakriti? Guna sanga, because of guna sanga, attachment to the gunas. So, of which it is the self is a possibility. The following statement is made. So then, 30. Any questions on 30 before we go to 31?
Dr. Shankar, in the last few verses, I mean, it is it can be understood why it is such a lofty thought, because there is no exclusion; it's all encompassing. But here they're talking about the direct perception of it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what does it really mean? Because for a person who has not realized or hasn't even come close, or I don't know what this means.
So before the intellectual concept is firmly established, right? Even if the direct person is there, is happening all the time, right? How will we become aware of it, right? So suppose we are sitting inside a theater, right? If we don't know where the exit sign is, how will we move towards the exit? Correct? You see what I'm trying to say? So first, we must have the great fortune to be pointed to the right exit sign. And you've already accomplished that by what method? By your birth. Gratitude mein bola na. So first thing, that whether you attribute it to your own good acts or to great fortune, in this life, you have had the great blessing of being born in the Sanatana Dharma. And through this great, fantastic birth, you have come in contact with this divine work. And you are reading this divine work. Half the battle is won right there. Okay? Half the battle is won right there. That puts you already way ahead of the pack. Okay? Now, all that remains is the mind has to intellectually become firmly rooted in this truth first, right? Because the direct experience will definitely follow, but the more and more the mind dwells on these truths mentioned in different ways, right? You see what I'm saying? It will naturally get purified. And then direct experience will not take very long, right? From morning till night, the mind experiences so many thoughts, correct? We can ascribe some number to it. It is very large. Now, the more and more, whether you read Bhagavad Gita, or you chant some shlokas, or you read Puranas, again and again, if you expose the mind to this lofty thought, what will happen in time? Slowly, slowly, the mind will get dyed in that color. Yes or no? Finally, it just dissolves. You see what I'm saying? So therefore, don't put a great distance between the direct experience and the intellectual comprehension, right? The intellectual comprehension, Shravana, first hearing. I told you half the battle is won right there. If with Shraddha you hear, you're already halfway there. Manana. But we are not just hearing like a parrot. In this class, you are asked to contemplate. You're encouraged to examine. You're encouraged to examine your own beliefs. Are they consistent with this thought? Right? How much am I able to bring this thought into my day-to-day life? In what ways do my day-to-day experience contradict this thought? This is manana. Right? Then you're sitting in dhyanam. You're applying the constructs of the way shown by the Siddhas. Right? This is a very powerful triple portion. Right? It's the guaranteed method to success. So what I'm saying is, very fact of taking birth and having the Shravana of the truth already very far ahead one is, right? So therefore, I suggest don't put a great distance between yourself and what you think is the end goal. I think it was Thomas Edison or someone who said, right, that many people didn't realize how close they were to success when they stopped trying. Who knows? The next time one sits and closes one's eyes may be the one. Why not? Right? If one approached with that attitude, right, what would be the difference?
One would never stop.
Yeah, and also, do you think that success will then run away from you? It cannot, right? Undoubtedly, repetition is needed, right? But every great successful inventor moves with the intention that this one will be the magic one, right? this will be the one that solves the problem, right? And when it doesn't, if it doesn't, then what is the thing? Okay, you analyze the what went wrong, and you make some small modification, appropriate modification, right? And the next time it works, right? Many of these great fellows, what was that? Even Michael Jordan, the great basketball player, he says, people think I'm a success, but it's because I failed again and again and again and again, and I never stopped. That's why he's a success, right? If you talk to all these so-called larger than life successful people, this is their story. Edison and Jordan are not considered to be ordinary people in the realm of human reckoning, yes or no? Right? If they say that, and that is their mantra for success, it cannot be wrong, right? So don't put a distance between yourself and the possibility of success. Why at the next meditation, at this instant, right? And if you put that thought in your mind, do you feel energized and empowered, or do you feel disappointed?
Energized.
It's like drinking a refreshing drink of Energizer, right? Why not? Right. So definitely don't feel that this is anything distant, right? Lord has intended this for everybody. Had you say that right at the beginning? Right. What were the preconditions? That will come again in 18. He said, as long as you have faith, as long as you do not cavil, as long as you do not disagree with the Lord, as long as you don't denigrate the Lord, if you approach with this Shraddha, it's for you. Right? I don't see anybody here denigrating the Lord. I don't see anybody here disagreeing with the Lord's words. So it is for you. Definitely. Right? So with that attitude, success will be more imminent than you can even imagine. Okay. Next one, please. Just 1 second. Yeah, please go ahead. Next one. 31.
अनादित्वान् निर्गुणत्वात् परमात्मा अयम् अव्ययः शरीरस्थोऽपि कौन्तेय न करोति न लिप्यते.
Anaditva. Adi is beginning. Anadi is without a beginning, right? And so, because of this nature of being beginningless, Anaditva, and then Nirgunatvat, because of being beyond the attributes, Paramatma Ayam, this Supreme Self, Avyayaha, imperishable, Sharirastho api, although dwelling in the body, Kaunteya, O son of Kunti, na karoti, does not do, na lipyate, nor get stained. I mean, where is this? Where is all this fantastic self that we're talking about? 10,000 miles away? Right within you. How can you deny it? What is this magical thing in everybody? It is so close. If something is so close, how can we not know it? Right? So, beginningless, free of attributes, Supreme Self, imperishable, though dwelling in bodies, neither acts nor is stained. Right? So it is a puzzle. It's a mystery. It's a Rajaguhyam, royal secret. Right? So, beginninglessness is the state of what is devoid of beginning or cause. What has no cause is beginningless, of course. What has cause undergoes essential change. This self being uncaused is impartite, so it does not change. Adihi karanam tastat yasya nasti tat anadi. Yadi adimat tat svena atmana vyeti ayam tu anaditvat niravayavaha iti kritva na vyeti tatha nirgunatvat sagunaha hi gunavyayat vyeti ayam tu nirgunatvat na vyeti iti paramatma ayam avyayata. What has attributes changes through the erosion of these attributes. What are these gunas? Sattva, rajas, tamas. They are always going in sequence. That is their very nature. And neither can exist in complete purity. Right? The nature is always that tamas is overcome by rajas, rajas is overcome by sattva, sattva is overcome by tamas, and the cycle goes on. We see this in our day-to-day life itself. In the morning, there is, in sleep, there is tamas. Then the sun rises, rajas, the pranas activate, and we get into Jagrata Avastha. And then rajas has its power and force. And when it is controlled by the sattvic guna, then we get up, we wash our face with water, and we sit down and say a prayer. We remember our higher nature, and then we start the day in whatever way, right? Then again, the multiplicity of the world overcomes us, and we are again overcome by ignorance, tamas. We may feel sleepy. So this cycling goes on in the deepest level. So because the true self, Paramatma, is not subject to these cyclings, that self is imperishable. He does not diminish. This being the case, though abiding in all bodies, for the self is known in them all, he does no work and is not stained by their fruits. Because it is only the gunas that do the work. And the gunas are nothing but his power. Right? Who then is the agent in these bodies? Who gets stained? If some embodied being other than the Supreme Self works and gets stained, then the identity of the Lord and the field knower laid down in 13.2 becomes untenable. Tad akaranad eva tat phalena nalipyate. He is not stained by the fruits. Yohi karta saha karma phalena lipyate. Only the doer can be stained. Ayam tu akarta ataha na phalena lipyate ityartha. Kaha punaha deheshu karoti lipyate cha. Then who is the one in all the bodies who does, who works and gets stained? Yadi tavat anyaha paramatmanaha dehi karoti lipyate cha tata idam anupapannam uktam kshetrajneshwaraikatvam. The indivisibility, the identity of the Lord and the field knower. Kshetragyam chapi bam vidhi. Know me to be the knower. 13.2. Field knower. Iti vachyam. Paro va nasti iti. Sarvatha durvinyayam durvachyam cha iti bhagavat proktam aupanishadam darshanam parityaktam vaisheshikaihi sankhya arhata bauddhist. So if, however, there is no embodied being other than the Lord who works in this, being hard to grasp and state, this Upanishadic philosophy proclaimed by the Lord has been rejected by Vaisheshikas, Sankhyas, as well as by the Jainas and Buddhists. Tatra ayam pariharo bhagavata svenaiva uktaha. The Lord himself has offered an answer in the words, the nature of things, however, operates. So, swabhavastu pravartate iti avidya matra swabhavo hi karoti lipyate. The empirical expression, someone acts and gets stained, is no more than an expression of nescience. In truth, such acting and getting stained does not exist in the Supreme Self. Precisely for this reason, the Lord has stated in several contexts that the renouncers of the order of Paramahamsas, who are established in the philosophy of the sages and have risen above all empirical activities, are not called upon to do any work. Kim ivana karoti na lipyate iti. Whom does he resemble in not working and not getting stained? Atra drishtantamaha. So, the idea being, it is only the power of the Lord as that Shakti or Maya, whose very nature is the three gunas, is the one who creates the illusion of action and the illusion of doership. So, for instance, if we think of power, the fire has the property of burning, right? So, if we encounter, say we burn our hands, is the fire actively burning your hand? Is it set out with an intention to burn your hand? Would that make sense? No. Fire does not set out to burn you. Its nature is to burn. And if you put your hand in it, you're going to get burned. Fire did not set out to burn you. Similarly, the nature of Brahman is Maya. It did not set out to make you ignorant, right? Any further questions on that thing before we move to 32, which is an example of the non-workingness? Because the next example is even better, I think. So, questions, comments, or we go to 32?
I will read.
यथा
सर्वगतं सूक्ष्म्यात् आकाशं नोपलिप्यते सर्वत्रावस्थितो देहे तथात्मानोपलिप्यते.
Yatha, thank you. Sarvagatam, just as, everywhere present, having gone. Saukshmyat, Sukshma is subtle. Saukshmya is the property of subtlety. And Saukshmyat is ablative, fifth case, as a consequence of the property of subtlety. Just as this space, Akash, which is everywhere, all pervading, has gone everywhere, and due to its property of being subtle, is not stained, na upalipyate, sarvatra avasthito dehe, so also the self, this Atma, present in every body, everywhere, tatha, na upalipyate, is not stained. So, even if the subtlest thing we may say is take a smell, right? Or whatever is done in space, right? Even the worst actions, space does not carry a trace of them, right? How is that? Because of its exceeding subtlety, right? Space is not stained by bad smell. It is not stained by, the performance of any, you may say, even unnatural acts. It is unchanged. In the same way, this self, although existing in all these bodies, is unstained. Then 33. Or any questions on 32? 33.
यथा प्रकाशयत्येकः कृत्स्नं लोकमिमं रविः क्षेत्रं क्षेत्री तथा कृत्स्नं प्रकाशयति भारत.
Very nice. Yatha, just as, prakashayati, illuminates, ekaha, one, Kritsnam lokam imam ravi. This entire world. Ravi is the sun. Kshetram, this field. Kshetri, the owner of the field. Tatha, Kritsnam prakashati bharata, illuminates the entire world. Right? Just as a single sun lights up this entire world, so the entire field, from the Pancha Mahabhutas up to sustentation, Dhruti, C 13.5 to 6, he lights up. Who? The owner of the field, the Supreme Self. The analogy of the sun serves two purposes. Like the sun, the self is one, only in all bodies. Two, he is unstained. Alepakasya. The following verse concludes the theme of this whole chapter. 34.
क्षेत्र क्षेत्रज्ञयोरेवम् अंतरं ज्ञान चक्षुषा भूत प्रकृति मोक्षं च ये विदुर्यान्ति ते परम्.
Very nice. Kshetra kshetrajyoho evam antaram. This difference between the field and the field knower. Jnana chakshusha, instrumental with the eye of wisdom. Bhuta prakriti moksham cha. Moksham is obviously the way of release from Prakriti, the cause of materiality. Bhuta Prakriti Moksham. Cha, ye viduhu, those who know. Yanti, they repair. They go to te param, to the supreme goal. Iti Sri Mahabharate Shatasahasryam Samhitayam, Shatasahasryam Samhitayam, Vaiyasikyam Bhishma Parvani, Srimad Bhagavad Gita Su, Upanishatsu, Brahma Vidyayam, Yoga Shastre, Sri Krishna Arjuna Samvade, Prakriti Purusha Viveka Yogo Nama, Trayodasho Adhyaya. Kshetra kshetrajyoho iti. Of the two, the field and the field knower, as already elucidated, whoso with the eye of wisdom born of the Shastras. Yatha vyakhyaatayoho evam yatha darshita prakarena antaram itaretara vailakshanya vishesham jnana chakshusa Shastracharya Prasada Upadesha Janitam. Born of the Shastras, the grace of the teachers. Acharya Prasada Upadesha Janitam. Atma Pratyayikam Jnanam Chakshu. And also born of one's experience. Born of the Shastras, the grace of teachers and one's own. You see, the other day I was talking to my daughter in the context of what should one accept as the truth. So in our Yoga Sutra, we say pramanam. Pramanam is valid mean of cognition. Valid means of cognition, pramanam, proof. And there are listed pratyaksha, anumana, agama. Pratyaksha is one's own direct experience. Anumana is inference. Agama is scripture. Now, if all three are in alignment, there is no problem. When does the problem arise? The problem arises when the three are not in alignment. And what specifically is meant by Anumana? Anumana must be applied to the experience of those who are wiser than one. मूर्ख का अनुमान लगाओगे तो क्या होगा? मूर्ख ही तो बनोगे. This must be obvious. You must know whom to draw inference to. If you draw inference to the village idiot, you will be no better than the village idiot. Because there are numerous experiences in the world. Yes or no? We have our experience. Let us say our experience is contrary to something given in the Shastras. Now we have two choices. Whom to follow? We can follow somebody worth following. That person is called Acharya. Why Acharya? Because their Acharam, their conduct is worth emulating. That is the very definition of the meaning of the word Acharya. Right? So, if one applies Anumanam to their experience, then it's worthwhile. If we apply Anumanam to a lesser person's experience, it will not be worthwhile. It will not lead to the ultimate synchrony and identity of one's experience and the Agamas and the Anuman. The Anuman should not be thought of as being applied to an idiot. So this is what Bhagavan is saying here. Very important. He says exactly the same things. I have wisdom born of the Shastras, that is Agamas, grace of teachers, Acharya Prasada, and one's own experience. See, suppose somebody comes to you, there are so many people on YouTube, I will teach you the best way. Fine, very good. Okay, let us examine. But my way is different from anything that any of the great gurus has said. It is also has no reference to the Shastras. Is it worth following? According to the wisdom given to us and our own innate wisdom, I'm already seeing the heads nodding negatively. Yes, it is not worth following that. Absolutely not. However brilliantly, independently somebody comes to any conclusion, if that conclusion is truly genuine, it will be in accord with the conclusions of the great gurus and the Upanishads. I told you this, that Swami Gyaneshwara Bharati said to me, indeed, one can discuss these things and encourage other people, but there is nothing in this that is not there in the Vedas, and I'm in complete agreement with that. There is nothing new to be said. That which has to be said has already been said more concisely and more beautifully than any human being can say in this day and age. However, because that wisdom has become lost through lack of memory, through lack of repetition, through lack of access, that is why people are saying something seemingly slightly differently today. Old wine in new bottles, so as to be more relevant to the experiences of contemporary folks. That's all, right? There is nothing radically new that anybody can say in this realm of the spiritual realm. So Bhagavan is saying, indeed, resort to your own experience, apply the inference with that of the grace of teachers, and let it also be born of the Shastras. Directly perceive the distinction as also the release, the extermination of Prakriti or Decians repair to the supreme goal. Tasyaha bhuta prakritehe mokshanam abhavaгаमनं च ये विदुः विजानन्ति यान्ति गच्छन्ति ते परम परमार्थ तत्वं ब्रह्म न पुनः देहम आददते इत्यर्थः. No more is there embodiment for them. इति श्रीमद् परमहंस परिव्राजक आचार्य गोविंद भगवत पूज्य पाद शिष्य श्रीमद् शंकर भगवतः कृतौ श्रीमद् भगवद गीता भाष्ये क्षेत्र क्षेत्रज्ञ योगो नाम त्रयोदशो अध्यायः. So, very beautiful and lovely chapter concluded, number 13. Any questions, comments? So the key takeaways from today's discussion: 1, nothing is excluded. Right? Very important. 2, the blessed state of being able to first hear Shravana, the truth, in different forms. Importance of contemplation, manana, and nididhyasana, meditating on it. How these will inevitably lead to the goal, which is ever present and can be accessed at any instant. Right? Although it seems to be hidden, it is very close. Right? So therefore, at every practice that one engages in, there should be the freshness of the possibility that this is the one. Right? When with that approach, which is very refreshing, which is very energizing, if one approaches, success is imminent. It's impossible not to succeed. Right? Now, earlier we talked, I think last time, about Krama Mukti and Jivan Mukta. We had a little discussion in our satsang, I think the WhatsApp group. I explained that we may think of 3 classifications. One is fear of death. Okay. Definitely, effort must be applied through repeated reading of the sacred texts to lose the fear of the transition from the body. Right? Secondly, it must be informed by the wisdom, either through direct experience or by anumana of the great gurus, that ultimately there will be jatasya dhruva mrityu dhruvam janma mritasya. There will be birth after that. Unless liberation is the result, it will result in bondage only. Right? Then there must come a firm conviction that that bondage is not desirable. Right? In a very calm state of mind. That conviction. Then once that conviction arises, then what is the path? What is the Krama Mukti path? Let us first examine that. Right. I will give you a short synopsis. Let us try to think like this. Earlier in meditation, I was saying, what if we don't have, we were starting meditation, normally we meditate for 16 minutes. Today is only 9 minutes. So I said, what if we are not able to follow all the procedures, which we normally do? Everybody has a prescribed procedure of following in meditation, a certain sequence. Let us suppose tomorrow the pranas decided to up from this body and leave. You have 9 minutes, you have 1 minute. What will you do? What will you do in that 1 minute?
We can remember, should take the name of the Lord.
Fix the mind on the Lord. And if even more is, if one can fix the mind on pranava itself. Okay. And now I'll explain what will happen. So if the mind has not been distracted by the senses at the time of departure, if at the time of departure the mind has not been distracted by an object in the world, the pranas will not leave through the sense portals. Otherwise, they will leave through one of the sense portals, in which case rebirth is inevitable. and the mind will be taken to the object that it was dwelling on at the time of departure of the pranas. This is well known. This is called the southern path. If the mind, however, fixes itself on the Lord or the pranava, then something interesting will happen. Because of that, all the stuff that is said in the Garuda Purana of the Yamadutas coming and holding will not happen. Because the Yamadutas are pictured as unable to hold the mind or that jiva whose mind is fixed on either Narayana or Shiva. Okay. Therefore, all the torturous procedure of the jiva described in the Garuda Purana, crossing the Nadi of Vaitarani, all the torments that the jiva's mind suffers on that path are instantly avoided. Now, what typically will happen is the mind will rapidly run through all the experiences of this birth. Okay, as it withdraws. If the mind is still held firm onto the notion of the Lord or the pranava, next it will ascend to the loka of the pitras. Okay, it will first then remember the lives of the ancestors. Right now, here again, Bhagavan Vedavyasa has given a very beautiful verse. He says, Mata Pitra Sahasrani Putra Dara Shatani cha Samsareshu Anubhutani Yanti Yasyanti cha Apare. This is something called the Bharata Savitri. This is in praise of the Mahabharata itself. Mata Pitra Sahasrani, mother and father. What is Sahasrani? Sahasra means? 1,000. So this verse says, mother and father, you have had thousands. So when you go to Pitraloka and you remember this births, mother, father, grandmother, grandfather, great-grandmother, great-grandfather, if one has been exposed to these wisdom, then all the Pitras are transcended. Because Mata Pitra Sahasrani, Putra Dara Shatanicha, plus you have had sons and wives, hundreds of them. Samsareshu Anubhutani, in this samsara chakra, the Anubhuta, the experiences, Yanti Yasyanti Chapare, one is taken to and one wants to be drawn to, right? Harshasthana Sahasrani, Bhayasthana Shatanicha. There have been 1,000 moments of happiness, 100 moments of fear. Divase avishanti mudam. These torment the ignorant again and again. Na panditam. Not the wise. So by fixing the mind on the Lord or the pranava, the entire world experience that torments the mind at the time of departure will be transcended in an instant. Then when the mind and pranas ascend to the Pitralok, with the memory that we will not dwell only on the Pitras of this Janma, that is full of all the Pitras, of all the Janmas you took. So why dwell there? It will ascend further. Then where will it ascend? Naturally by following the image of the Lord to the Devalok. In the Devalok, the ruler is Indra. There, the jiva will be offered many delightful pursuits. Infinite pleasure of the senses. Delight in the senses. This will be the test of the yogi. Will you accept this or choose higher? If one accepts this, the jiva will enjoy a long time in Swargalok. When the punya is exhausted, descend again. Still in the samsara. Right? However, if even there the mind persists and remembers the Kenopanishad, where Uma appeared, There was a yaksha who came. The gods were drunk with power after defeating the asuras. And they said, who is this yaksha? Go inquire. First Agni went. He tried to burn a blade of grass that the yaksha offered. He could not. Then Vayu went. He could not blow the grass that yaksha offered. Then when mind went, the yaksha disappeared. The import being that he is beyond the mind. And then Uma came and advised the god. She said, this is Brahman. You forgot Brahman in your delight. And so if this Kena Upanishad is remembered at that instant, then something further will be sought. So, Bhor Bhuva Suva Maha. This is the abode of the Siddhas. Mahalok. Now, these Siddhas have conquered the tamasic aspects of the guna, of the Indriyas. The tamasic aspect of sense experience has been conquered by the Siddhas who live in Mahalok. Their food is meditation, dhyanam. The more meditation one has done, the easier one will sport in that loka. But if the mind still dwells on the Lord and Pranava, it will rise to the next one, Jana. In Jana Loka are the Siddhas who have conquered the Rajasic aspect of the senses. Mind continues to dwell on the Lord and Pranava. It will ascend even one further, Tapa. Here there reside the Siddhas who have conquered the Sattvic aspect of the senses. Okay. Then mind continues to dwell on the Lord and the Omkar. It will rise to Satyalok, abode of Brahma, brilliance of 1,000 suns, Surya Koti Samaprabha. No. Mind is still not satisfied. It dwells on Shiva. Right? It will ascend beyond. Shiva is the last portal of the gunas. In the guna-filled world, there is nothing beyond Shiva. Shiva is the end. Right? In the Saguna world, he is a tamasic aspect. Once that mergence into Shiva happens, beyond that is only Nirguna. So, this choice exists. If you trace the origin of Shiva himself, right, on the other side, he arose from Brahma, and Brahma arose from Vishnu, Padmanabha, right? So, dwelling on the nature of Vishnu will also lead beyond. Right? It is a cyclical. To ascend to the level of Shiva, you have to know Vishnu. And to ascend to the level of Vishnu, you have to pass Shiva. How is this possible? It's only in the spiritual realm that this is possible. That to pass A, you have to pass B. To pass B, you have to pass A. But it can be true if A and B are two sides of the same coin. Right? So therefore, in Krama Mukti, this is what happens. But what Bhagavan Ramana and others tell us, and Hemalekha say, okay, fine, this is one way to go. Why even wait that long? Why do you think of death itself as a transition? Right? Why not you can experience that self right now with your eyes open? This is the challenge they throw out to us. As aspirants, they say, indeed, this is all very good. I've given you the progression of the mind from fear of death to beyond the fear of death, to awareness of reincarnation, to awareness of samsara, to distaste for the reincarnation, to the desire for Krama Mukti. Beyond that, then Jivan Mukti. Right? Beyond that, there is nothing. Because that is the characteristic of the mind described in this chapter. Right? Who are these? Jnana Chakshusha. Who are these? Who are Viduhu? This is referring to Bhagavan Ramana and Hemalekha of the Tripura Rahasya. Right? This is the high, lofty vision given to us by our tradition. Right? Knowing which, then one can sport in the world with complete delight. Paramanand. Right? And no sorrow. It's the same thing that the Buddha says, freedom from sorrow, freedom from suffering. Right? It's the same thing that all other religions also say. So, did you enjoy Kshetragya? Okay, we are quite a bit beyond time. So, any questions or comments, or we can say Shanti. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. You can also come back with your questions before we start Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga next time, the yoga of the three constituents. So, let us say Shanti. Om Tatsamyora Vranimahe Gatum Yajnayam Gatum Yajnapataye Daivihi Swastirastu Naham Swastirmanushebyaham Urdhvam Jigatu Bheshajam Tanno Astu Dvipadehe Sham Chatushpade Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namaste everyone. Have a lovely evening, a lovely weekend.